It's 9:30 at night. You're at home. Kids are in bed and you're watching TV when suddenly there's a knock at the front door. You go straight to the front door. You open it and find two police officers staring at you saying, "We got a call about this address." What you say in the next few seconds will determine whether you get back to your television show or end up with cops inside your home asking you questions and searching around. And what most people do in this moment is one of the biggest mistakes you can make when police show up unannounced. But I'm not just going to point out the mistake. I'm going to give you the exact words to say to put the law back on your side, and I'll back every bit of it with real case law. Here's what most people don't realize. When officers say, "We got a call about this address," that phrase is not a magic key that unlocks your door. It doesn't mean a call was actually made, and it definitely doesn't mean you're required to explain anything. Think about it from the officer's perspective for a second. A knock and talk like this is completely routine for them. Noise complaint, domestic disturbance call, suspicious activity. They run this exact playbook constantly, and they already know how most people react. They expect you to open the door. They expect you to start explaining yourself, filling the silence, trying to be the reasonable, cooperative homeowner. And the second you do that, you've handed them the entire encounter. Here's what actually happens once that door swings open. You start saying something like, "I have no idea what this could be about," and now you're in a conversation you didn't agree to have. Your eyes are being watched. Your body language is being read. Your voice is being recorded, sometimes on a body camera you can't even see clearly. And anything visible through that open doorway becomes fair game under what's called the plain view doctrine. Maybe you're the type who says, "Come on in, let's figure this out together." That's the polite reflex kicking in, and officers are trained to expect it and lean on it. The moment you say those words, you've given full explicit consent for them to walk into your home. Or maybe you think you're being clever by cracking the door just a few inches. Doesn't matter. A few inches is enough for them to see a countertop, a bag, a bottle, anything that lets them claim reasonable suspicion whether or not what they saw actually means anything at all. You don't know what conclusion they're drawing. They do, and they are counting on you not knowing that too. This is why they almost never tell you specifically what the call was about. The vagueness itself is the strategy. The less information they give you, the more your own brain starts filling in the blanks. Was the music too loud? Did the kids get into something? Was there yelling earlier that a neighbor overheard? That anxious guessing game is doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is to make you feel like you owe them an explanation. And here's something that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. Officers are legally allowed to lie to you about why they're there. Courts have upheld this repeatedly. They can say, "We got a call," even if no call was ever placed, because the goal isn't honesty. It's getting you to talk, to explain, to fill in a story that gives them something to work with. Trying to talk your way out of a lie you don't even know is a lie almost never works, and it almost always makes things worse. Now, here's the part that should make you feel a lot more in control, because the law is genuinely on your side, and most officers are counting on you never learning this. The Fourth Amendment protects your home more strongly than almost any other space you occupy. Not your car, not the sidewalk, not your backyard fence line, your home. The Supreme Court made this explicit in 1980 in Peyton v. New York, ruling that police cannot cross the threshold into a home without a warrant or a recognized exception. They can knock, they can call out, they can ask questions from the porch. What they cannot do is force their way inside without either your voluntary consent, a warrant, or a genuine emergency happening in that exact moment. A neighbor's phone call is not a warrant. "We just got a call about this address" is not a warrant. "We only want to ask a few questions" is not a warrant either. And here's the detail almost nobody thinks about. If officers actually had a warrant, they wouldn't be knocking politely and waiting for your cooperation. They'd be announcing themselves loudly and coming in whether you liked it or not. The fact that they're asking, the fact that they're waiting for you to open the door is itself the tell. Asking means they don't have one. You might be thinking, "But Jeff, what about a welfare check? What about officers saying they're just there for your safety under what's called the community caretaking doctrine?" For years, that argument worked. Police used the idea that they were simply checking on someone's well-being as a backdoor way into a home without ever getting a warrant. But in 2021, the Supreme Court shut that down in Caniglia v. Strom, ruling unanimously that the community caretaking exception does not extend into the home. It might still apply to searching a vehicle in some circumstances, but it cannot be used to justify entering your house. which means when an officer leans on the welfare check line at your front door, they are hoping you don't know that this argument was already struck down. They're hoping the phrase alone sounds official enough that you'll open the door, invite them to look around, and hand them exactly what they need to justify the next step. There's another trick worth knowing about, and it's the exigent circumstances doctrine. This is the idea that officers can enter without a warrant if there's a genuine immediate emergency, someone screaming for help, visible smoke, evidence about to be destroyed in real time. Courts have upheld entries under this exception, including in cases like Kentucky v. King, but the key word is genuine. A vague, generalized, "we got a call" is not an emergency. If there really is an emergency, the officer should be able to tell you exactly what it is the moment you ask. If they can't articulate one clearly and immediately, they don't have one. They're just hoping the pressure of the moment gets you to open the door anyway. There's also the issue of consent. And this one trips up more people than almost anything else. Even if one person in a household says, "Yes, come on in," that doesn't necessarily mean the search is lawful if another resident who is present objects. In Georgia v. Randolph, the Supreme Court ruled that when two occupants are both present and one clearly objects to entry while the other consents, the objection wins for shared spaces. This matters if you're not the only adult home when officers show up. Silence from one person does not cancel out a clear refusal from another present and objecting occupant. So knowing all of that, what do you actually do standing at that door at 9:30 at night? You keep the door closed. You do not open it. You speak through the door, through the peephole, or through a window, and this is completely within your rights. You start with this exact question: "Officer, do you have a warrant for this address?" If they say yes, ask them to hold it up against a window or slide a copy through a mail slot so you can see it. Check that it was actually signed by a judge, not just printed and waved around, because there are documented cases of officers presenting unsigned paperwork and people mistakenly opening the door, which then gets treated as consent. If they say no, they don't have a warrant, respond with this: "Without a warrant, I'm not opening the door. If there is a genuine emergency happening right now, tell me exactly what it is. Otherwise, I'm exercising my right not to open the door or answer questions." This single response does two things at once. It forces them to either produce a real warrant or admit they don't have one. And it forces them to articulate a specific emergency on the spot, rather than relying on vague language later in a police report. If they push back with the classic line, "If you don't let us in, we'll just go get a warrant. Do not cave," that line is designed to make refusal feel pointless, like you're only delaying the inevitable. Your response stays simple: "That's your right, officer. I'll be here. But I'm not letting you in without one." Think about the logic here. If they genuinely had enough evidence to secure a warrant, they typically already would have, or they'd be far less interested in your voluntary cooperation right now. If they lean into the welfare check language, remind them directly that under Carnegie v. Strom, a wellness concern does not authorize entry into a home. You can say, "I'm right here. I can confirm I'm fine." A welfare check doesn't give you the right to come inside. "Do you have a warrant?" Calm, clear, and repeat it as many times as needed. One more thing worth remembering: staying silent and declining entry is not the same as being combative. But how you say these words matters just as much as what you say. Calm and respectful, but firm. Officers will sometimes describe someone as uncooperative in a report simply because the person raised their voice or slammed a window shut, even if every word they said was legally protected. Stay level. Repeat the same core phrases if needed. You are not required to explain your tone, your mood, or your day. You are only required to know your rights and hold that line. But here's where things get tricky, because some officers won't stop at the door. What happens if you crack it open just to prove you're fine for a welfare check, and the moment you do, a boot slides into the gap before you can close it again? That single move changes everything about the encounter, and most people have no idea what their rights actually are once that happens. Check out the next video where I break down exactly what to do the second an officer puts their foot in your door. See you over there.